Hi there. I'm Cassidy. I bought my first home with my own hands, after years of sleeping in a damn camper. But when I opened that front door, my family was already inside, claiming it as theirs. They said it was my father's wish. They forged leases, changed locks, called the cops on me, and then sued me for emotional distress. What kind of family does that? The rain was coming down in sheets as I pulled into the driveway, the kind of Portland downpour that soaks you before you even grab your keys. My hands were still trembling from the closing. I had just signed the final papers. After years of sacrifice, of sleeping in that freezing metal box of a camper, this was mine, a real house. My future finally had walls. I stepped out, heart pounding with pride, boots splashing through puddles. The key was still shiny, barely warm from my pocket as I unlocked the front door. And then, my breath caught. They were already inside. Meredith, my mother, sat on the couch like she belonged there, her shoes kicked off. Holden leaned against the kitchen island, sipping something from my mug. And Janelle, with that smug little tilt of her pregnant belly, gave me a tight-lipped smile like this was her damn baby shower. "What the hell are you doing here?" My voice cracked on the last word. Meredith didn't even flinch. "This is still your family home, Cassidy." "No, it's my home now." My throat burned. "You all made it very clear I was on my own." Janelle rubbed her stomach slowly. "We just thought, maybe you'd let us stay a while. The baby—" "Don't," I snapped. "Don't use that baby like a guilt grenade." Holden didn't speak. Coward. He just stared at the floor like he hadn't been laughing behind my back for years. I felt the room blur, my vision tunneling, and it hit me all over again. The first time I was cast out like garbage. 3 years ago I'd begged them. Just a patch of driveway, I'd said. Somewhere to park while I figured things out. Meredith had turned away like I was a solicitor. Holden had muttered, "You made your bed." And Janelle? She'd smirked, all teeth and pity, and said, "We have a baby on the way. We can't have that thing in front of the house." Back to now, and now they were here. Dirty boots on my rug, my fresh-painted walls echoing with old poison. "You used my name," I said slowly. "To file for benefits. You stole my identity." Meredith blinked. "For the family. You weren't using it." I threw the letter at her. Oregon DHS detailing claims made under my social security number, my name dragged through bureaucratic mud. "I found out about the credit line too," I said. "The one opened with my name. You've been racking up debt on accounts I didn't even know existed." Meredith waved a hand like she was shooing a fly. "That was years ago." "Exactly," I snapped. "Years of damage, years of lying." "I didn't do anything wrong," she hissed. "It's your family. You owe us." There it was. The Monroe mantra. You owe us. My whole life had been a slow, soul-crushing repayment plan for debts I never agreed to. I pulled out my phone and called the police. "Oh, come on," Janelle said, rolling her eyes. "Isn't this a bit dramatic?" "You broke into my house," I said. "You're not staying here. Not one more second." When the officers arrived, they were polite. Too polite. "This is a civil matter," one said apologetically. "They claim they were invited. Do you have a lease agreement? A written notice of trespass?" My heart sank. "No," I admitted. "I just got the keys." They stayed. Of course they did. I walked outside. The rain had slowed to a mist, like the sky was holding its breath. I slid into the driver's seat of my truck and stared at the house, its porch light glowing like a lie. "They left me in the cold," I whispered to the windshield. "Now they want to steal my warmth." I flicked on my phone camera. My face stared back, wet hair clinging to my cheeks, jaw set like stone. "They don't know who they're dealing with anymore," I said. "But they will." I didn't know it then, but this was only the beginning of their war. I hadn't even taken a sip of my coffee when I felt the change in the air. The cafe wasn't empty. Early risers with laptops and retired couples filled the corner booths. But the moment I stepped inside, it was like a collective hush blanketed the room. People looked up. Some glanced away too fast. Others held their stares a little too long. I tried to ignore it, ordered my usual. "Cass," the barista whispered while swiping my card, eyes darting left. "I don't know if you've seen it yet, but people are talking, online. It's about you." I didn't ask. I didn't need to. My stomach knew before my mind caught up. I walked out, fingers frozen around the lid of my drink. I didn't go home. I parked 2 blocks away and opened my phone. There it was. A video, already with thousands of views. Janelle, red-eyed, hair undone just enough to look tragic, sitting in what looked like my living room, cradling her stomach like it was some divine shield. She screamed at me, her voice broke in the clip. Told me to get out, that the baby was my problem. I had nowhere else to go, and she locked the door on me. I stared at the screen, then replayed it. Twice. She'd gone public, spun a story out of glass and poison. I drove straight home, heart pounding so hard I couldn't hear myself think. The second I stepped out, I saw them, Holden and Janelle, standing near the sidewalk like they were waiting for an audience. "Cassidy," she said with that same innocent tremble in her voice, "we didn't mean for it to go viral. People just... they care." "Turn off your camera," I snapped. Holden lifted his hands. "No one's filming. Chill." Janelle stepped forward. "You need help, Cassidy. You've always been volatile." The word struck me like a slap. "That's funny," I said, coming from someone who faked tears for likes. "Don't do this," she whispered. "Please, not in front of the neighbors." As if on cue, 2 strangers walked by, pausing just long enough to catch the tension. One of them looked vaguely familiar, too familiar. Later that night, I figured it out. He wasn't a neighbor. He was a background actor, one I'd worked with at a food truck event 2 summers ago. Back then, he bragged about getting paid to fake protest videos. I checked the video again. He was there, in the background of Janelle's clip, nodding solemnly like he'd seen me kick puppies for fun. This wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. It was a campaign. Crafted, directed, filmed. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I got to work. I called Janice, my lawyer, explained everything. "You're going to want to gather proof," she said. "Screenshot everything. Videos, messages, comments, even the ones they delete." I installed cameras around the house. Quiet, sleek. I recorded my screen each time I opened social media, tracking posts before they vanished or were edited. They wanted to make me a villain. Fine. But this time, I'd write the ending. Still, it hurt. I stopped going to the gym, stopped showing up to early meetings unless I had to. People at work smiled tighter, asked less. I caught whispers at the copier. "She's the one, the sister-in-law." I started sleeping on the couch again, lights off, music low. 16 years ago. It was yearbook committee season. I had campaigned hard, had the GPA, the portfolio. But Janelle got the spot, smiled with her braces and fake tears and told everyone I made her cry, that I'd said she wasn't smart enough. I didn't, but it didn't matter. She had always known how to twist the truth until it bled. And now, she'd weaponized an unborn child. I watched the newest neighbor testimonial on my phone. Same actor, different script. She just screamed at them. No empathy, no heart. My heart was beating just fine. It just wasn't bleeding for lies. I met Janice again. We drafted the cease and desist together, line by line. Every sentence a little stab of control. But before I could send it, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, screenshots. Dozens of them. Janelle's messages to the fake neighbors, instructing them what to say and how much she'd pay. One message even joked, "She's gonna snap any day now. Let's catch it on camera." I dropped the papers, hands trembling, walked down the hall and looked straight into the new camera above my door. "They think this is a game," I whispered. "They think I'm cornered." I blinked through tears, not of weakness, but clarity. If they want war, they'll get one, just not the one they expected. I didn't want to go. But when Meredith asked to meet on neutral ground for a civil talk, something inside me stirred. Maybe it was the faintest trace of hope. Or stupidity. Hard to tell them apart lately. The house belonged to Carol, an old family friend whose loyalty, I suspected, leaned more toward shared casseroles than shared truth. Her living room smelled like lavender and silence. Meredith was already there when I arrived, so was Holden. They sat across from me, hands folded, expressions composed. A manila envelope sat between them on the table. Meredith slid it forward. "Your father left this. We thought you should see it," she said. I didn't reach for it right away. "He's been dead for over a year," I said flatly. Funny how this just appeared. Holden sighed like a man carrying a heavy burden of imagined righteousness. It's not about the timing. It's about doing what's right. I opened the envelope. Inside, a single sheet. The font was odd, the language clumsy. It read like something scraped from a courtroom drama and pasted into a Word doc. And there it was, an alleged statement that my father wished the house I now lived in be relinquished to his only son for the sake of family honor and continuation. Dad never called it family honor, I muttered. Meredith's face tightened. You don't know everything about your father, Cassidy. Neither do you. I folded the paper once, then again, slipping it into my coat. They both watched me, expecting a reaction. You really think this will work? I asked. That I'll read some photocopied guilt trip and hand over my life? Holden leaned in. It's what he wanted. I stood. He's not here to say that, but I am. That night, I sat at my dining table, the will spread out beneath the lamp's yellow glow. I circled every inconsistency, the signature, the phrasing, even the date. It was marked a week before his death, when he could barely hold a pen. Years ago, I remembered visiting him at the hospital. He looked at me, eyes clouded but sharp enough for one final jab. You're not my burden anymore. Not quite love, but honest. This fake was anything but. The next day, I met with Janice in her office downtown. She took one look at the document and shook her head. This isn't legal, and it isn't even subtle. She made a few calls. By the time I finished my coffee, she had confirmation. No updated will, no addendum, no final request from Richard Monroe filed with the courts. What they handed you was fiction, she said. Amateur fiction at that. I drove home in silence. My hands gripped the wheel tight enough to ache. They weren't just trying to shame me now. They were trying to rewrite history, forge legacy, warp grief into control. I texted Meredith and Holden that night, asked to meet. A diner on the east side, somewhere with too much light and too little privacy. They showed up together. Janelle was absent this time, thankfully. I didn't waste time. You're not lawyers, but you're about to need one, I said, sliding the copy of the will across the table. This is fake. Richard Monroe's actual estate lawyer confirmed it. Meredith smiled thinly. Sometimes spirits speak through the living. Holden laughed. Are you going to sue your own family now? Over what? Paper? No, I said, leaning in. But if you try this again, if you forge one more document, spin one more lie, I'll go public. I'll let the world decide who the monsters are. And I promise you, someone will listen. They didn't have a response for that. And I didn't need one. Later that night, I checked my cameras. I didn't know why. A gut feeling. Paranoia, maybe. One of the alerts was recent, just past midnight. The footage showed Holden on my porch, crouched by the lock. He didn't break in, but he tried. He gave up after a few minutes and disappeared into the shadows. I sat back in my chair, chest rising and falling with cold, measured breath. They're not stopping, I whispered to myself. I won't either. I came home with grocery bags digging into my wrists, already rehearsing a mental list of things I had to get done that night. Prep for the legal filing, change the camera angles, and try to find one damn hour of peace. But the moment I stepped onto the porch, something felt off. Shoes, not mine. Not anyone I recognized. A man's boots, too big to be Holden's. A pair of fuzzy pink slippers planted right beside them like they belonged. My stomach started a slow descent. I tried my key. It didn't turn. I jiggled it once, twice, then stepped back and stared at the doorknob as if it might offer an explanation. From above, a window creaked open. Janelle's voice, syrupy and smug, poured out like poison. We live here now, Cassidy. It's better for the baby. I didn't answer. My body turned cold. My hands were shaking, but I didn't want to give her that. I stepped back, dialed Holden, straight to voicemail. So I knocked. No answer. Again. Then, like a well-timed slap, a squad car rolled up. The officer was polite, in that disinterested way that meant I'd already lost. Ma'am, he said, we got a call about a disturbance. A male resident reported harassment. My laugh came out clipped. You mean the guy who broke into my home? He raised a brow. Do you have a lease in your name? It's my house, I snapped. I bought it. Janelle came to the porch, rubbing her stomach like a prop in a courtroom. We have a rental agreement. she said sweetly. From last month. The cop pulled out a printed form she handed him. It looked official. Not good official, template official. But it was enough for him. He turned back to me. You'll have to take this to civil court. I was told to not escalate things, to get a lawyer. The driveway tilted under me as I watched them retreat behind the door that was mine. My bag slumped to the concrete. Apples rolled out like a sad parade. That night, I slept on Uncle Ray's couch. He didn't ask questions, just gave me a blanket and an old mug with chamomile tea. My hands curled around it, but the warmth didn't sink in. The next morning, I logged into my security feed from my laptop. I scrubbed back through the week. There they were, Holden and Janelle, midday, 3 days ago, walking in with boxes like it was their goddamn moving day. The footage showed them laughing. She held a smoothie in one hand. He kicked open the door with the other. I sat there in silence, my jaw clenched so hard I tasted metal. 16 years ago, I remembered Holden snapping the lock off my bike and grinning. It's just stuff, he said when I cried. Now it was my home, my life. And this time, it wasn't just stuff. I called Janice. Her voice was steady, mine was anything but. They changed the locks, I whispered. They forged a lease, she replied. That's criminal, but proving it will take time. Time. That thing they kept stealing from me. We'll file for emergency possession, she added, and we'll sue. Do it, I said. That night, I wrote a letter to Holden. I printed it, signed it, scanned it, sent it to Janice, then walked to the mailbox outside Uncle Ray's. 3 days, it read. Vacate my home or face full legal consequences. This is your only warning. I hit send, and for the first time in weeks, my breath didn't hitch when I exhaled. They wanted to bury me in my own silence, but now they'd hear me, loud, legal, and unshakable. If they wanted war, they picked the wrong battlefield. They showed up 15 minutes late. I was already halfway through my coffee, watching the condensation beat up and run like little escapes down the side of the mug. Holden strolled in like he was doing me a favor. Janelle followed, one hand resting conspicuously on her belly, her smile already staged. We were at a diner on East Burnside, neutral ground, as Janice suggested. Bright lighting, neutral faces. No one would throw anything in here. I didn't bother with small talk. I'm giving you 48 hours, I said, sliding the file across the table. Then I file in court, and once that happens, I go public. Holden laughed like I just told a joke. You think anyone cares? You're the one kicking out a pregnant woman, remember? Janelle tilted her head. We didn't want this to get messy. You brought this on yourself. I didn't blink, didn't even look at them, just tapped the pages. Their signatures were there, highlighted, enlarged, forged. I'm done playing your game. This is your warning. My voice was level, but I could feel my hands tremble under the table. Fury hummed in my teeth, just waiting for the right moment to bite. They didn't take the file. When I walked out, I didn't look back. The next morning it started. Screenshots from friends, DMs. A coworker even asked if I was okay after seeing a post. Some anonymous account had shared photos of my house, my car, even a picture of me at a gas station. The caption read, Would you trust someone like this to raise a child? Neither would we. The hashtags were vicious. #homewrecker, #fake family, #no-heart-Cass. I couldn't breathe. For a moment, I genuinely couldn't breathe. I checked the post's metadata. Nothing. Burn account. Probably VPN masked. I was facing a ghost. But then Uncle Ray showed up at Janice's office the next day with a manila envelope in hand. His face was pale, angry. Someone slipped this under my door, he said. Thought you'd want to see it first. Inside were screenshots from a Reddit thread. Username, tiff_mon89, IP logs, timestamps, conversations with other burners about making Cassidy look unstable. I didn't need a DNA test to know who Tiff was. I remembered Tiffany ripping up my award in the 3rd grade. I didn't mean to, she said through tears, but she did. She always did. I stared down at the pages and whispered, Then we go scorched earth. That night, I filmed a video in my car. No makeup, no script, just me. The truth. I never wanted this to be public, but they made it that way. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. I posted it. Watched it spread like a slow, righteous flame. A few hundred views, then 1,000, then 10. Comments came in. Supportive, furious, curious. People were finally listening. Janice called after midnight. "We're not just reacting anymore," she said. "We're going on offense." And then came the envelope. Certified. From a law firm I didn't recognize. I opened it like someone defusing a bomb. Holden was suing me for emotional distress and unlawful eviction. I laughed. Short. Bitter. Then the sound dried up in my throat. They weren't just trying to take my house. They wanted to ruin me piece by piece. "It's war," I muttered, slipping the letter into my evidence folder. And this time I wasn't fighting alone. The lawsuit sat open on my laptop, every word bolded in my mind like a personal slap. Holden's accusations were laughable. Emotional distress, wrongful eviction, hostile behavior. I scrolled down, jaw locked, until I hit the signature. His name, underlined. I clicked out, opened my encrypted folder, dragged in all the evidence. Title, full counteroffensive, sent. Janice responded in under 60 seconds. "Let's bury them." I didn't flinch. I didn't breathe deep or whisper poetic promises to myself. I just sat there, surrounded by stale takeout and receipts of betrayal, and let the moment settle. They wanted to play dirty. So be it. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A link. No message. I tapped it. A local Portland news site. Holden's name was in the headline. An internal ethics investigation had been launched against him for document falsification and workplace intimidation. My eyes widened. This wasn't me. I hadn't pulled that trigger. I read through the article twice. It was vague. HR was reviewing concerns after an anonymous complaint was filed. Then another ping. A DM from one of Holden's old coworkers. "You didn't hear it from me, but someone dropped a copy of that fake lease he used, sent straight to the VP's desk, said he's a liability." I stared at the screen. Who the hell was helping me? Uncle Ray? No, he'd tell me straight. Janice? She denied it. My gut twisted. Suspicion curled its fingers around my thoughts like smoke, but I wasn't afraid. I was entertained. Let them burn each other down. By noon, Janice filed our counterclaim. Defamation, trespassing, financial fraud, emotional distress. 4 counts, 40 pages. And finally, 40 steps ahead of them. I took a selfie in front of the courthouse, posted it with 3 words, "Truth has receipts." Within hours, people were talking again, this time on my side. Screenshots, email headers, snippets of Janelle's fake lease messages. I didn't even have to name names. The internet connected the dots faster than I could type. I watched as Holden and Janelle deactivated their accounts. One by one, their voices disappeared from the noise they started. And I sat back, laptop in my lap, letting the weight of it all crack like glass in my chest. This wasn't vindication yet, not really. But it was the beginning of balance returning. Later that night, I came home from work, exhausted and wired all at once. The porch light buzzed overhead. I climbed the steps slower than usual, the ache in my legs nothing compared to the fire in my head. That's when I saw it. A note taped to the door, plain white paper, my name scrawled in familiar ink. "You're not the only one who wants the truth out. Meet me. Friday, Ray's Diner, 6 p.m. I touched the edge of the paper, fingers still dusty with courthouse folders. The handwriting tugged at something. Memory, warning, something unformed. I closed my eyes, breathed in. "Finally," I whispered, and stepped inside. The package was small, plain, wrapped in brown paper, sitting quietly on my doorstep like it belonged there. No return label, no sender name, just my name, written in a hand I didn't recognize. Inside, a dusty cassette tape and a USB stick. I stared at them like they might explode. Back inside, I powered up my old tape player from the attic. Pressed play. At first just static. Then a voice, coarse, deliberate, cutting through the years like a blade through old wounds. Richard Monroe. "If she ever hears this, let her know. I didn't want her. Never did. She was a mistake, an obligation I never asked for. She was always just a burden." I blinked. He kept going. "She doesn't belong. She never did." The tape clicked. I hit rewind, played it again, then again. By the 3rd time, my limbs were numb, my mouth dry, my body stiff, like my cells didn't know how to absorb this poison. That voice, it was supposed to read bedtime stories. To say, I'm proud of you. Instead, it sounded like fire set to bone. I sat at the kitchen table as the sun dipped out of Portland's sky, the city sinking into cold. In the silence, everything began to rearrange itself. 16 years ago. A birthday party where no one showed up, and no one cared. My father standing in the garage, ignoring the cake I baked myself. 9 years ago, the night he said, "Some people aren't meant to lead, Cassidy. You're better off following someone smarter." All of it, crawling back like it had just happened. It wasn't me. I whispered to my reflection in the hallway mirror. It was them. It was always them. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stopped pretending. Later that evening, a knock. I opened the door. Uncle Ray. He looked older than I remembered. Grayer, smaller. "I found something," he said, handing me an envelope. "It was in your grandfather's attic. Addressed to Meredith. Never sent." I opened it. A letter dated 36 years ago. In it, Granddad wrote about a fight between Meredith and Richard, accusations of an affair, a name circled in pen. Cassidy might not be his, and he knows. The letter trembled in my hands, but I didn't. I felt it snap inside me, something old, fragile, like a rib that had been cracked long before I ever knew it was broken. "I never had a chance," I said aloud. The rest of the night passed like water slipping down a drain, my face blank, my hands moving on their own. I grabbed a box of old photos, him holding me, fake smile. Him at my graduation, 3 steps away from everyone else. Him standing in front of the house he never wanted me in. I took the box to the backyard and lit a match. The flames were quiet, but they screamed. He's not my father. I don't owe him my silence anymore. By midnight, I was driving west. I parked near the cliffside, climbed to the edge. Wind slapped my face, salty and sharp. I screamed into it, once, then twice. It didn't echo, it vanished, and something inside me went with it. The next morning, I deleted his name from every contact list, every file, every label. When I came home, I felt lighter, scarred, yes, but scar tissue is tough. Then, another knock. I opened the door. Meredith. She stood there, face tight, holding a photo frame. Her eyes were wet, but not from grief. From something else. Calculation? Shame? She didn't speak. "We need to talk," she finally said. I stepped aside. The air between us pulsed like it remembered everything we ever refused to say. The invitation came tucked in a red envelope, trimmed with glittering green pine branches and stamped with a gold foil, "Merry Christmas." It smelled faintly of peppermint. Aunt Lorraine's handwriting was unmistakable, slanted and warm. A family Christmas gathering. Full house, old traditions, new faces. She'd always stayed out of the family politics, never choosing sides. I stared at the RSVP card for a long time. This wasn't about holiday cheer. This was about walking into the lion's den, knowing exactly where each tooth was sharpened. I wasn't going to celebrate, I told Uncle Ray. I was going to finish what they started. We arrived just after dusk. The house glowed in warm yellows and deep reds, garland wrapped around the banisters, like it hadn't been stained by decades of buried grudges. Aunt Lorraine hugged me tight, her breath whispering into my ear. "I'm glad you came." I scanned the room, Holden near the drinks table. Janelle sitting like a porcelain saint beside the tree, her hand over her stomach like she was cradling a porcelain prize. Meredith near the kitchen, face tight, her wine glass fuller than it should have been this early. The air tensed as soon as they saw me. Dinner had barely started when the table turned to ice. Janelle stood, her voice loud enough for the whole room. "It's just hard," she began, blinking fast. "Being pregnant, and homeless, and having your own sister-in-law slam the door in your face." Murmurs, raised brows, eyes flicking to me, then away. Holden folded his arms smugly. Meredith looked at me like I'd kicked a puppy. Janelle sniffled. "And it's Christmas." I stood. No yelling, no dramatics. Instead, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a manila folder. "I thought someone might bring the holiday spirit of manipulation," I said, placing it on the table. "So I brought some cheer of my own." I opened the folder, pulled out the printouts. Legal notices, screenshots, the fake lease, photos of them moving boxes into my house behind my back, and the USB. The silence grew taut. Then I hit play. My father's voice crackled out across the Bluetooth speaker Aunt Lorraine had connected earlier for carols. I didn't want her. She was a burden, a mistake. Gasps. Forks clattered. Somewhere a child asked what burden meant. Meredith lunged for the speaker, but Uncle Ray blocked her. "You don't get to shut her up anymore," he said. His voice didn't shake. And then, his hand reached into his own coat. He pulled out the letter, the one from Grandpa's attic. He read it out loud. "Cassidy is not Richard's daughter. Meredith had an affair. Richard knew. He stayed for appearance, not love." People stood. Others sat frozen. Holden's face turned the color of bad meat. Janelle hissed something under her breath and stormed out. Meredith followed. But the damage had already been done. Unseen to all of us, one of the younger cousins, maybe 12 or 13, had filmed the whole thing on her phone, and within hours, it landed in the extended family Facebook group. By midnight, messages were pouring in. An aunt from Wisconsin commented, "Meredith should be ashamed." A cousin I hadn't spoken to in a decade messaged, "I'm sorry I believed them." Another relative, a quiet cousin from Florida, posted, "Blood doesn't make family, truth does." Screenshots flew. The group exploded. The family fractured down the middle. I didn't try to stop it. That night, back home, Uncle Ray and I sat in silence, sipping cider under soft string lights. My living room had never felt this calm. "They built their world on lies," I said. "And when the masks came off, they couldn't even breathe." He nodded. "You didn't burn it down, you just stopped holding it up." I looked around my house. My house. Not a war zone, not a secret battlefield, mine. Maybe I didn't lose a family. Maybe I found the one that was real all along. New Year's morning came with an unfamiliar kind of silence. No banging at the door. No notifications blinking red with threats or smear campaigns. Just the soft ticking of the clock and the rustle of wind against the window panes. I lay still, not because I was tired, but because I was uncertain what peace was supposed to feel like. I'd imagined this day 1,000 different ways. Fireworks, laughter, maybe even closure wrapped with a shiny emotional bow. But in reality, it was just quiet. Quiet and heavy. The weight wasn't from fear anymore. It was from the echoes, the ghosts of what I'd fought, what I'd lost, and everything I'd learned to live without. I sat up slowly, feet brushing the cold floor. I didn't want vengeance, I whispered to the empty room. I wanted the silence to mean something. Later that morning, Uncle Ray knocked. He carried 2 mugs of gas station coffee and that familiar air of protective guilt. "Figured you wouldn't want to start the year alone," he said, handing me the cup. We didn't talk much at first, but eventually, between sips and a shared silence, he updated me. Holden was unemployed, still denying everything, blaming cancel culture. Janelle had vanished from social media, and her family now kept their distance. Meredith apparently hadn't spoken to anyone since Christmas night. "I should have said something years ago," Ray finally admitted, not looking at me. "Back when I first saw how they treated you, I let your mom steamroll everyone." "You were the only one who didn't," I said. "That's why I'm still listening." We didn't need to dissect the rest. I told him I wasn't pressing further charges. No civil lawsuit, no revenge. Freedom wasn't revenge. Freedom was the absence of them. That evening, I sat at my desk and opened a new document. I titled it, "To the Man I Thought Was My Father." I didn't write it for him. I wrote it for me. I told him I knew the truth, knew he saw me as a mistake, knew he let me carry a shame that never belonged to me. But I also told him this: I was never yours to disown, but I am mine to reclaim. You don't get to haunt me anymore. When I was done, I closed the laptop. I didn't print the letter, didn't burn it either. Some truths just need to exist in silence. The next day, I drove past the empty lot where my old camper used to sit. A piece of land that had once felt like exile. Now it felt like a museum exhibit of my survival. I parked for a moment, no tears, just a deep breath. Then I drove straight to a local women's shelter, the back seat stacked with bags, clothes, cookware, books. I told them, "Start someone over with these." Some of us fight wars to win, some of us fight to heal. Back home, I lit a single candle in the kitchen. No rituals, no ceremonies, just a soft light and the sound of my own breath. And then I found it. In the mailbox. A thick envelope, cream-colored, sealed with a wax stamp. My name in my mother's handwriting. I stood on the porch for a long time. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Not yet. I closed the door behind me, and for the first time in years, I didn't check if it locked. Sometimes the quiet after the storm is the loudest thing we'll ever hear. I thought justice would feel like fireworks, loud, bright, undeniable, but it didn't. It felt like peace, like finally being able to breathe in a room no longer filled with judgment, lies, or expectations I never asked for. If there's one thing I've learned through this, it's this. Blood might make you related, but honesty, respect, and support make you family. Sometimes, walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And silence. It isn't surrender. It's strength choosing not to waste itself on noise. I spent so long begging to be understood, to be seen, when the truth is, I just needed to see myself clearly. And when I finally did, I stopped asking for permission to be free. Now I want to ask you something real. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you thought would never leave your side? Have you ever had to rebuild yourself from pieces someone else shattered? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story hit a nerve. Or tell me, where are you watching from? And if you didn't like this story, that's okay too. Let me know why. Let's keep this honest, like life is. And if you believe stories like this matter, stories about truth, pain, healing, and finding yourself, then hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Let's walk this road together. You're not alone.